for a while now, I've had this, like, I understand that you can't control your thoughts, and you can't, like, try to make yourself think of something. Like, you can't make yourself have a brilliant idea. There's certain ways that you can influence it. There's certain ways that you can try to change your behavior. And that's what we're discussing here. We're discussing how do you program your own mind. Hey, I just want to quickly interrupt. If you get anything, if you're confused by anything, if you disagree with what I'm saying here, please comment down below. I'm trying to make a system that works and then share that with other people. So your comment will help. I will update the system and make a new video. Peace out. Because it's something I've given a lot of thought to. So we'll go ahead. I'm going to put up my screen over here for my iPad and we'll get started. Just going to name the thesis. You can't control your thoughts. You're like, okay, how does that help me? No, that's just a thesis. You can influence the thoughts, but you still can't necessarily control them. I want to show you how this all works. So the first thing you realize is that thoughts come into your head. This is what you can't control. But once that thought occurs, you can take action on it. And you do take action on it. Deciding not to do anything about that thought is still taking action. So you have action and do I want to act? The next thing is that action is then going to shape your environment. And forgive my spelling, it's truly horrible. And then that environment is going to trigger certain thoughts. And this is all pretty self-explanatory, but we're going to loop it back up here, and it's going to trigger you to have certain thoughts, and whether or not that's benefit is really depends on how well you implement what I'm going to talk about later. But certain example, if I put my water on my desk, then I can have a thought of, oh, I should drink some water. Then that's me shaping my environment, triggering a thought. I'm going to drink some water, put this back in my environment. So then it's a nice loop. My environment triggered the thought of water. I had the thought. I decided if I want to take action on it. I took action on it. And that's basically how it works. I mean, there's so much more depth to actually get into for this, but that's just like the general concept. So with all of this stuff, you're like, how do I actually wind up controlling the thoughts? And actually, we'll go more in detail on this right now. So your environment is made up of two things. You have your physical environment, or I mean, this could be better represented as external. And then you have your internal, like your body. So certain ways of changing those thoughts is like, for your environment, you can, let's split this up, put body over here, physical over here. So ways to change your physical environment. So you can write down stuff on a piece of paper by your computer. You can have notes on your phone. You can either make a little note widget on your phone so that when you're scrolling through it, you'll see the note. At least for iPhones, you can do that. You can put notes up in your bedroom. You can write down notes on pieces of paper that you read daily. You can put things on your lock screen. Talking to different people, places, and listening to music and books are all ways of shaping it. So let's just write that down. Let's go. Paper by desk, people, places, notes, app, lock screen, music and books. how do you influence your body? This is just some examples, but like you influence your body if you haven't slept, if you're stressed out, if you're dehydrated. All of these are going to put you into a higher dopamine seeking state where your brain will have thoughts triggered by the lack of dopamine it feels, and you're going to be fighting off all those like impulsive thoughts on how do I get quick dopamine. So let's just go sleep, stress. There's just a few examples, but like a great one for sleep is I found I make so much better decisions during the day if I go and take a 20-minute nap. That's me. I work so much better. I'm sure you all realize this. Like when you wake up in the morning, you have all this energy. You're like, oh, I feel so good. You maybe do your morning workout. You go, like, you eat clean. You go to the gym. You go to work. And then you get home from work and you're tired. Now you're tired. You're like, oh, you know what? Those potato chips look really good. I mean, maybe I'll just go scroll on my phone. Maybe I'll go smoke some weed. Like these are all thoughts you have because you're tired. Like you would have said, oh, fuck that. I don't want potato chips. I don't want to like scroll on my phone in the morning. But because your brain is tired and it's looking for quick dopamine, that leads you down this whole path. And you can avoid that whole thing. Like you can avoid all of those bad decisions by taking a nap. I mean, like literally a nap without your phone. Behind me hanging up, I got these like leg compressors from Costco, and I'll just put those on for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And I'll lie down. And I mean, you can do this in your chair at work. You can do this pretty much anywhere. People might look at you, but like, screw them, man. You're making yourself better. And I also have a foot massager I'll sometimes use, but I find it really helpful to have a physical stimuli on which I can relax my mind on in order to help me like relax and like take a nap. Even if I'm not actually like napping, I'm still like disassociating and the time just goes like that, and then you're up and you're like, oh, I feel so much better. And the ideal window for this is 30 minutes. Do not go over 30 minutes. If you're going over 30 minutes, you need to take a 90-minute nap, because NASA did studies on this with sleep, and you're basically at 30 minutes, you're able to work. You're not fully entering into your sleep cycle, and your sleep cycles are 90 minutes long. But a 30-minute nap is ideal because they were doing studies for astronauts on finding what's the best benefit cognitively. If you take a 90-minute nap, the one thing I'll say is if you do it later in the day, for me, it's after 3 p.m., you have chemicals that build up in your brain, and those chemicals trigger you to go to sleep at certain times. And when you do a full sleep cycle, you kind of flush out some of those chemicals, so there's not as much of them triggering you to then go to bed. And if I take a nap or sleep more than like 90 minutes after 3 p.m., I'm not getting to bed till like 2 to 3 hours later than I normally want to. So it kind of like, I'll be more tired the next day, and that's something you kind of have to figure out. If you're just really sleep deprived, then like sure, you can take a 90-minute nap, and then you can also feel great and go to bed later in that day like you normally would. It depends on how sleep deprived you actually are. And all this right here, like changing, influence your body. Like I don't take caffeine. Like the only caffeine I take is green tea, and I drink that for the detoxing purpose, not even the caffeine. And I can go weeks without it and not even feel it. But taking a 30-minute nap is so much better than coffee. It's so much better than all these things. So you're going to crash off of caffeine. All drugs, you're trading something, like you're trading your future something like neurodependency, chemical dependency, tiredness for an immediate effect now. That's all drugs. I mean, mushrooms and acid are a little different, but for most drugs, you're trading something right now for something later. So you have to realize you're making that trade. So if you take caffeine during the day, you can do that. It's fine. But you need to make sure you're not taking caffeine in order to make up for crappy sleep later on. I'll get to that later on. So this loop right here, this applies for all of your thoughts. For each one, it has its own little loop that can enforce it. So like say, I don't know, I smoked cigarettes for a while and then I quit. So like I have one of these loops for nicotine. So a thought comes in my head, oh, I want to hit a vape. I want to get nicotine. I decide, you know what? I'm happy to be free. I really don't want that in my life. And then that shapes my environment because I don't have a vape on me, which then the trigger is I don't have more of those thoughts because I'm cutting it off. And I'm going to talk about this more in the second system, but that's just like one example. You can have a same one for junk food where you have the thought of, I want chips. You go to the store and you buy chips. Now chips are in your environment, which are then going to trigger the thoughts of wanting more chips. So this is how it works, and it works for each thing. Well, we'll do a new page. So this is what you have control over. And you need to practice this system if you actually want to do anything with it, because you are dumb and you will backslide because it takes focus and is metabolically expensive in order to stay in a high consciousness state. So you need to, like, your body wants to kind of ease off or wants to relax, but you can train yourself to stay here. And it's very good when you do. So let's just go here. You have your, oh my God, my spelling. THOUGHT. You have your thoughts. And then you decide, do I want to act on it? And with this question, things that you have to keep in mind is, will it benefit me? That's an important one. The other one is, would my best self do this? And that's the more important one, is would your best self do this? Because you can have short-sighted things. Like, you can be like, would it benefit me to get cigarettes? Will it make the craving I'm having go away? Would my best self do this? No, my best self would not trade instant dopamine for fucking up my dopamine system. It wouldn't. And the thing is, this whole system right here, do I want to act on it? This is what meditation helps with. It helps create a space between your thoughts and then your actions. So let's zoom in. Oh my God. Meditation, mindfulness help with this. Also, something that helps is naming the thought. So, is it a craving? Is it fear, resentment? And you can have different ways you deal with it. Like, I have a different way I deal with cravings. With a craving, I have this practice where, like, the reason why I'm craving something is because I allowed myself to want it, and it kind of puts this thought into your head of, I'll be happy when I have it. And then when you don't have it, it creates the craving. And by feeling like in my head and focusing on the craving itself, not entertaining the craving, but focusing on that feeling of lack the craving gives me, I realize it disappears because it's a wall I built in my own head. So I made a whole other video talking about this, but you can build little walls in your head, and you're here, and happiness is over here. You're like, there's a wall. How do I get to that? Well, you could realize there is no wall because you can just walk around it. And that is something that takes practice. It takes practice to do this. But naming them helps you set certain systems in place for how you want to deal with those tasks, well, with them. What's that? Needs I can't read my own handwriting. Okay. Well, meditating helps with that. Oh, and when people do not have this space right here, that is when I call them an NPC. That is not being conscious. Like, you are literally a freaking deer. And it's interesting. I hunt. I love hunting. But, like, I can go into the woods and I can follow a deer trail because I've trained myself to know what to look for. I look for openings in the brush. I look at the elevation. I look at what plants are around. I look at where the tree line is. And I take all those factors into consideration. And like, those are the only factors you really need to take into consideration. And you can follow like a deer trail from one spot to another to another. It's crazy. Like, the deer isn't really conscious or thinking about any of this stuff. It's just reacting to its environment. So you can, if you just, it takes practice to do this, but if you learn how to do it, you can just follow how it goes. And it's like, holy shit, this thing is literally just going through the motions, and it doesn't have like, it's not conscious of its thoughts. It's not questioning its thoughts. It's purely reacting on like behavioral cues that its environment gives it. So it doesn't have this whole, I mean, it purely has this system up here. It purely does this. It has no, a deer doesn't meditate. It has no capability of creating this space right here. But I mean, this is also what it means to be conscious. When you're conscious of your thoughts, you have space. You have the ability to evaluate whether or not this is something you want to act on. And when I talk about increasing my consciousness, it's increasing that space. You increase it through mindfulness and through meditation. And part of the meditation is just, you take a bird's eye view. So, I mean, you can go up to a mountain if you have the ability to do so. You can go up to a tall building, and you're up there in your nice little tall building, and you're there, and you're just watching people walk by. You're watching little cars drive by. My cars are crap, but watching little cars zip by, and you just observe them. And that's kind of what you want to do to your thoughts. You want to sit in a quiet place and just notice what thoughts drift through your head. But you don't, when you're on top of the building, you're on top of the building. You don't suddenly go into the car and let the car drive off with you, in the same way as you don't let your thoughts drive off with you. So you have something, you're like, why is that thought there? And that's something you can do, and something that I'll talk about. But, yeah, if you don't question your thoughts, your brain, like if you don't have this space, which is really important, your brain will seek short-term dopamine. NE, there we go. It will seek short-term dopamine. It is, or also, if you haven't trained yourself not to do it. Because something that can also happen is you can train yourself, and through forming good habits, you make the path between the thought and the good action easier, because neurons that fire together wire together. The more you do something, the more you have a thought and then you take an action on that thought, the easier it is to take action in the future. So by having this space right here, by not seeking the short-term dopamine, by deciding whether or not you want to act on it, you can basically make it easier for yourself in the future to choose that good choice. So every time you choose the bad choice, you're making it easier to choose that bad choice. Every time you choose the good choice, it is easier to go and do that choice. The first time you go to the gym is really hard. If you haven't been to the gym in a while, going to the gym is pretty difficult. And once you go there for a while, it's easy. You get in the habit of doing this. So you can have good habits, you can have bad habits, but you need to be conscious of those habits. Dopamine. Okay, so let's go down here. Now we have two options. So do I want to act on it? We'll go no over here, and we'll go yes. Actually, let's change that around. just to have more space. We go no, yes. So then if you choose yes, you have, do I want to act now? And that's something you have to decide. And with that, just a new page, I can scroll down more. You have no and yes. And this is just a simple decision tree. If you want to act now, then I'll put this down here. Yeah, let's go hot pink. Because everything leads back to this. If you choose that you want to act now, then you do the action. If you choose no, then what you need to do is, especially if it's a good thought, which you already decided up here, do I want to act on it? Yes. So you have a good thought that you don't want to act on now. And that's the thing, like you can be driving, you're like, I want to go to the gym tonight. That's a good thought, but you're driving, you're like, I want to work out. It's a good thought, but you can't act on it right now because you're driving. So then you need to have a way to capture it. This can be a notebook. You could text yourself. I personally prefer, I use the Reminders app. So Siri in Apple is absolute horse crap. It is so horrible. I'll give it a brilliant thought of something I want to do, and it'll grab 3 words out of that thought and put each word as a list. I'm like, I've yelled at it, I've sworn at it, and I've said this in my last video, it is one of my greatest annoyances that it does not feel bad. Because I've said some really nasty stuff to it. And I know this said something about me where I'm swearing at like AIs, but it's so annoying because I'll have a thought and it's like 2 minutes long and it just doesn't capture it. I'm like, it was so brilliant. And then I try to go through and add it in later, but it doesn't always work. So for this, what I recommend is I made a custom, I use shortcuts on my phone, and I'll put a screenshot of the shortcut up here. I just go through and I have, like on the new iPhones, you can customize the buttons. So I made the action button, the flashlight, and the flashlight button trigger the shortcuts. And I also wrote a shortcut where if I say the word pineapple while holding down the power button to trigger Siri, it will then open a text and it will allow me to dictate for a long time, which is really nice. And then I take all those thoughts and I put I sort those thoughts later on. I can go more in depth in this, but I sort those thoughts into a giant list of thoughts based on the category once a month. And I look through those thoughts and I see, what will give me the greatest leverage? What do I want to put into action? Some things are just really interesting thoughts I've had. Some things I want to like actually act on. I'll check the list often, but at least once a month I go through everything and I sort it. So you need a system. You really, really, really need a system that works for you. And one of the benefits of this is like when I go to bed at night, I don't have 1,000 thoughts flying through my head. I've captured them all. I don't have anxiety. Like for me in college and high school, like especially college, mostly it's college, like the first week of class, I always had anxiety because I'm like, oh my God, there's so much stuff I need to do, but I don't know what I need to do because I haven't checked the syllabus yet. And once I go through the syllabus and I write down the due dates for everything, and I understand when the first assignments are due, when I need to get my textbook by, my anxiety goes away. And it's that easy. Like your anxiety is there because there's something you haven't addressed. Once you address it, it goes away. It's beautiful. My mind's clear. It's sharp. And I've had this system in place for ages and I love it. I love this thing, but you need something that works for you. You have your phone on you always. So I recommend doing it on your phone, and text to speech is way quicker than, well, speech to text is way quicker than actually typing it out. And I can do speech to text while driving, which is why I have my current system. I'll put a screenshot up here. Well, maybe I'll do it twice. I don't know. Depends on how I edit this. So then once you capture it, you check it once a month. And then after you're done checking it, you act. Everything comes back to acting. So we're going to go up here to, do I want to act on this? And we're going to say no. Okay, well, you have two things here. You can dismiss the thought, and I'll go back to nicotine here. When I had the thought of I want to hit a vape, I want to smoke, I program myself, and I read this great book on it, The Easy Way to Quit Smoking by Alan Carr. And what it basically says is, the moment you realize you have that thought, cut it off and just say, I'm happy to be free. I mean, you might have to change how you say this depending on what it is, but it's, I'm happy to be free. For food cravings, it might be, I like the way I look, or I like being fit. But you have something that you cut it off with. And this takes like 2 weeks to do if you have a thought. And if you entertain that thought later on, you need to kind of start this whole process. But it does work. The thoughts go away. But you can dismiss it. And for me, I have the thought of like, I want to do, I'm happy to be free. I just cut it off. Like, I want it happy to be free. And then one day, like after, it's like maybe 10 days in, I just had the thought, I'm happy to be free. And when that hit, I was like, fuck man, I'm free. Like I literally I trained myself to kill off that thought before it even happened. And all I processed in my head was, I'm happy to be free. So that's one way to do this. The only downside of this is you can develop a shadow. This is what Carl Jung talks about with your shadow self, because you are somewhat repressing the thought. Like you have this thought for a reason, and you need to understand why you have that thought. If you see something and it makes you horny and you want to like go watch porn or something, like you need to understand why that is your go-to response, and you can't necessarily keep on dismissing it, because then you're going to make yourself really sexually repressed, and you're going to basically alienate yourself from your sexual energy, which is a great thing. Like it is beautiful, but you need to be conscious of dismissing it and what you're dismissing. So the next thing is, so the thing to watch out for is, can make a shadow. If you want to watch at the end, Charisma Academy has a great video talking about the shadow, but it basically, you just repress a bunch of stuff that comes up in your 40s and 50s, and it's pretty horrible. So you need, like, my brother explained it to me this way. I love this analogy. If you see the movie Lilo and Stitch, you have all the little creatures, the little experiments, and they're running around causing all sorts of havoc and chaos. But at the end of the movie, they don't like dismiss them. They don't force them somewhere else. They figure out where those thoughts belong. Like, how do I put that in? Like, why am I having that thought? Or they put all the experiments into a place where they can be beneficial. So, like, thoughts of being horny can, instead of triggering a porn response, you can be like, oh, how do I manifest this sexual energy? Or if you're in a relationship, that can be really good, because then you act on it within the confines of a relationship, and you're then basically deepening your connection with someone else, and everything's perfect. But like, you dismissing it helps with like certain cravings, but also understanding why you have that craving is the better thing to do. You might not have time to figure it out. It takes a while to sometimes figure this stuff out. Using GPT just to talk it through can actually be pretty good, and I mean, that's what I use it for. I've used for that for a lot of stuff. So then you can dismiss it, or you can try to understand why you have it. That, and for this one, I'm just going to put this in order. Therapy. Talking to people you, let's go back here. Trust. You are not special. You're not. You've lived life just the same way that so many other people have also lived life. And you can go to those people because guess what? Your human experiences, sure, we might live in different houses in different places, but like human desires and stuff, everyone's experienced them to some degree. And at least, I don't know, if you know 10 people, at least one of those 10 people have dealt with the same problems you're dealing with, most likely. And if they haven't, then go to therapy, because they'll know how to deal with it better. But a lot of the issues plaguing people, overeating, lack of exercise, drug indulgence, like, these aren't new things. They're not. They're really not. You can also read books or talk to GPT. If you talk to GPT, do not use the voice conversation method. It's pretty horrible. What I like doing is going to deep thinking mode, and I will use speech to text, and I will basically talk through everything I have to say, have it think about it, thinks for like a minute sometimes, and then I will play its response out loud to me, and I will pause it when it's playing, because you can do this on your phone. You can't really do it on a computer, which kind of sucks, but I'll pause it while it's playing, and I'll add stuff to the response, and then I keep doing that, and I'll pause it, and I'll do that for however long I want to, whether or not I want to talk further about a concept, clarify something, and then I'll submit that, and it's just a loop of that until I feel like, I worked this out. And then you need to take action on what you figured out, which brings it back to act. So once you understand why you have it, you act upon it. Let's see. Yeah, so if you don't want to act on a thought, then the key thing is do not fantasize. Let's change that text color, because that's actually something pretty important. Don't fantasize about it. Like, if I want to quit nicotine, I should not play in my head going and buying a vape and then the pleasure that I will get from hitting it, because it doesn't help anything. All that does is it makes it more likely for that thought to then occur. Or if I don't act upon that thought and I already had the craving and I fantasized about it, you know what that does? It creates the wall. Like, literally fantasizing about it creates the wall, because I'm not going to act upon it. And when I don't act upon it, if you've ever seen a toddler in a store like throw a temper tantrum when they didn't get what they want, that's what your brain does. Like, nicotine withdrawal, sure, it's a little bit chemical, but 98% of it is psychological. Like, your brain fucks you up so badly with that. And I didn't realize that until I quit. And literally, if you're dealing with nicotine, Easy Way to Quit Smoking by Alan Carr. The book really helped me understand that, because I was like, holy shit, I'm literally allowing myself to fantasize about it. I mean, on my back wall over there, I have, it's a really nice image that I drew, but it is the word, I basically drew an image of my vape, and the lines of the image are just the word nicotine written in like size 4 font, because I was in a Calc 2 class in college and I didn't have my vape on me, and that's all I could think about. But you see how ruminate, like, that's an extreme example of ruminating on it and fantasizing about hitting it. And when you do that and then you don't go hit it, it creates the withdrawal. Let's go on. So what do you do with all this? Well, I'd say you meditate, you practice mindfulness, you look through this, and you, I can make this nicer. It might take a week, but I'll put it in the description as a PNG. And you can download that, and you can put it on your phone. You can print it out and put it on your desk, and you can read through it to understand, oh, this is why I'm behaving the way I'm behaving. And then with all this stuff, we're going to go back to your environment. You can get more sleep. You can stay hydrated. You can realize that this will really help you. You can also change your books, the people, the places, the lock screen. That's changing your environment. That's one of the easiest ways to do this. So with changing your environment in mind, let's see, my recommendation is that you identify one of these thoughts. You find one that is negative, that you do not like having. And then you notice, you can write this down, you notice when you have that. Where are you? What are you doing? What's causing that? And you write that down as the trigger. And then you try to remove that trigger from your environment. And at the same time, you also add positive triggers into your environment. You add water balls into your environment. I mean, this is only the melatonin, but like sleep. This reminds me to go to sleep. I'm wearing blue light blockers. I put these on at night to remind myself to go to bed. So I'll put them, I get in the habit of putting them on at 8. Do I necessarily go to bed at 8? No, but if I have them on, it's a physical reminder to go to bed. I have a Whoop band because it reminds me to still be active, and I check my sleep and I make sure my sleep is good, because otherwise you can lose focus on these things. But if you maintain your focus, you can turn this into good habits. But once you have the good habits, there is a derping cycle, which is basically a state of low agency that sets in because you can run at 60% and still get by. And when you do that, these habits are going to start slipping, which is why in tomorrow's video, I'm going to be talking a lot more about the system I'm making in order to stop these habits from slipping by. Because if you can stay here, if you can control your thoughts, you can really program yourself to be the person you want to be. Granted, there is some degree of genetics and environmental upbringing that you're going to have to work through, but this is how you do it. So yeah, leave me a comment down below and peace out.